Love it, guys. Welcome. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to our webinar today. This is BPM RIA, Broward, Palm Beach, Miami Real Estate Investors Association, your only local chapter down here in South Florida that's approved and partnered with the National RIA, National Real Estate Investors Association. My name is Alexa, Operations Manager here at BPM RIA office. I have an awesome webinar today for you guys. The method, the deal, the legacy. Very powerful. We have awesome people in here. We have Jason, Michael, Heather from Unbridled Wealth. And as I briefly mentioned, as you guys were coming in, they are officially with National RIA. They are a part of your benefits. You have to pay attention today and research and look into your member portal. All the members, look at the member portal, check them out, and you guys are just gonna feel really good about it after the webinar today. So a couple quick announcements. Everyone in here will have an opportunity to schedule a free financial planning meeting with Unbridled Wealth, and you will also have the ability to get this discounted book if you are interested in becoming your own banker, which I highly recommend. So thank you guys for being here, and we're thanking you by offering this amazing thing, and I will give you guys all the special link for this during the webinar. Couple announcements, upcoming events. We have an incredible webinar tomorrow, so looking forward to seeing you guys again tomorrow. Anish is teaching this class, 20 ways to invest in real estate. So looking forward to seeing you guys. Next week, we have Advanced Tax Advisor. Jose is coming back for some tax planning strategies. Then again, another great webinar next week. We have, we're getting into tax deeds and tax liens with the Jackie Jackson, TED Talk speaker. Really excited to have her. She'll be speaking next week as well. So looking forward to seeing you guys 2 times next week. And then here we go, coming to Miami. So anyone that is, not available during the week can meet up on the weekend. Please meet us at the Courtyard by Marriott Miami-Dadeland. We were going to have an awesome workshop, 2-hour workshop. Won't take your whole day, but we are definitely excited to have you guys come join us for this free in-person workshop. And as always, you can find all of these events on our website on bpmreia.com/upcoming-events. So link is in the chat for you guys. Go register right now. And I look forward to seeing you guys later this week and next week. So my favorite way to keep up with our events, as many of you guys know, it's just so easy and convenient, is via text. If you'd like to opt into the text updates, super easy, text the word BPM REIA, all one word, no spaces, to our event line, 954-800-6961. Don't call this line. This is just for event updates and raffles and things like that. There's no actual person at the end of this number. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and opt in. Go ahead and check out the chat or take a quick picture because we are going to move right along. All right, quick start. Our 2-day boot camp dates are out. The next one is August 5th and August 6th. If you haven't registered, if you haven't attended, please go and buy your ticket right now. We have member pricing for $495, non-member pricing for $695. This is 2 full days. The price is unbeatable. We're getting into wholesaling, flipping, rehabbing, all of the good stuff. 4 incredible speakers. Like this, you get a PDF booklet to keep for life. It's that you can't beat this training. If you're even remotely interested in mentoring or taking your business to the next level, or even learning about real estate investing, we will see you here. It's not a debate. This is the best training, and everyone has a really great experience. So looking forward to seeing you guys all weekend long, August 5th, August 6th. And yes, Anish does teach this training, and he does offer a money back guarantee if you are not satisfied. So see you guys there. All right, members get all the goodies. Members get the entire discount package from National RIA. They get in free for our in-person networking meetings. Their guests come in at half off. And of course, they have member pricing for all of the special workshops and seminars that we do. If you have any questions about the membership, or if you'd like to purchase your membership right now, please go in the chat box. Link is there. And of course, you can always reach out to me. You will all have my direct contact information by the end of this webinar. So look out for that. All right, mentoring and coaching at BPM RIA. Some of you may know that we do offer one-on-one coaching and mentoring, but some of you may not. So I do invite you to go to our website right now. We have a link on our website that you can book a discovery call with me, and we can talk about all the things that are included in our mentoring and coaching program. We do set our students up for success. We put up 100% of the money for their deals and split the profit 50-50. So if you'd like more details about this, what's included, pricing, all the good things, go to the website, book a discovery call with me. And during this call, I will be more than happy to schedule this 1 hour conversation with a mentor. So you guys can get all into the nitty gritty questions and get your answers and just get that clarity if our program is a good fit for you. So here is my direct line. I will look forward to your discovery call. Please book it. That is the best way to connect with me. If you have questions about the Quick Start 2-day training or the mentoring or memberships, please feel free to use this link so that we can schedule time together that works for you, that works for me, and I can really give you that attention and all the details that you're looking for. So thank you everyone for paying attention and listening to me tell you all the resources that we have available. I'm more than happy to help. I'm really excited to get into this webinar. If you could please, just a couple housekeeping rules, put those questions that you have for our wonderful speakers in the Q&A box in your Zoom menu. There is a Q&A box there for your questions, and we will get into as many as we possibly can, probably get into all of them because we got 2 speakers in here, so they're gonna be on top of you guys. So let me know what questions you have, put them in the Q&A box. Go ahead and engage with our speakers in the chat if you'd like, but make sure those questions get to the Q&A so we don't miss any of them. So without further ado, I'm excited to have Jason and Michael here. Some of you longtime members and listeners might remember Mike from a couple years ago, or maybe even last year. I think you were still over here. So he is definitely in around South Florida-ish, and he's been coming to our in-person events, networking. He does it all. And then Jason here, we met at the winter conference for National RIA. Just great guys. I'm excited for you to meet them and learn from them. And they are involved in all of the events. They're involved with the members. They are dedicated. I've seen it with my own eyes, and I'm just excited for you guys to learn as much as you possibly can from them today. So let's do this thing. Welcome, welcome. Thanks for coming in.
Awesome. Thank you, Alexa. Thank you guys for showing up. Welcome to the our webinar today. And there's some amazing stuff coming up with BPM. I mean, just hearing all those events that are coming. I mean, take advantage of all this stuff because it can change your life, especially when you couple multiple strategies that, together where tax planning strategies plus like infinite banking and all this stuff that we're going to be talking about today. When you couple it all together, it really works out super, super well. So thank you for that. So yeah, my name is Michael Fernicola. I've been around for a little while. I do a ton. I don't think I've been here for probably about a year. I had a baby, bought a business. There was a lot of things that kind of got involved with the past couple of years or the past year. And so it kind of got a little busy and hectic for a little while, but I'm with Unbridled Wealth. Been doing this for a while. I started as a practitioner about 4 or 5 years ago, doing the strategy that we're going to teach you today. I started out private money lending. And then just last year, found an opportunity to purchase a business utilizing all this strategy that we're teaching today. And just kind of opened my eyes to even more. And so I practice what I preach, and I think I could talk for everybody at Unbridled. And we all just practice what we preach, and we tell people to do things that we've already done and that we're doing because it's beneficial and good. And so I'm a family man. I've got 3 kids. I've got a 4-month-old now, and never a dull moment in the household. But I'm actually in South Florida, but not as south as you guys. I'm up in Stewart, and then I have an office in Jupiter as well. So kind of up here and make it down there every once in a while and when I can. So if you ever do want to meet in person, I could definitely set something up as well. But here with us today is Jason, and so I'll have Jason introduce himself as well.
Hey guys, I'm always pumped up when I get to get in front of real estate investors, because it's what I've done a good chunk of my life, and I'm passionate about it. And I'm like, man, if I knew about this when I first got into real estate investing, it'd be a different ballgame, and it truly would. And that's not just fluff. And I say that, I really mean that. So I get really excited when I get to teach other real estate investors about this. I am in Southern Indiana, originally from Denver. I've only been here a couple of years. We had a real estate opportunity out here. You know, back in 2008, 9, 10, I jumped into real estate investing. I was watching friends lose their homes when the market crashed. And I didn't know what I didn't know, right? And I was thinking, man, there's got to be a way to help people avoid foreclosure. There just has to be a way. And lo and behold, that's what got me into real estate investing back then. And it was just finding ways to help distressed homeowners. And so it's about that, which if we had 3 hours today, I would get into it. But just fun opportunities that came up to help people avoid that foreclosure, which is what I set out to do. That set up to got into fix and flips a little bit after that. And a couple of years of that, I really wasn't a fan. I got into buy and holds. And then a couple of years after, I have other businesses. And so I was never doing it full time. I never aspired to do it full time. I'm kind of an opportunist. And as things came up, I would jump on them over time. Anyway, we were visiting family out here in Southern Indiana, and I saw this beautiful little cabin on a lake for sale. And I was looking at Denver prices. So I was looking here, I was going, man, this is really cheap compared to Denver. And so I bought this little place and thought we could stay here when we visit family out here, and then Airbnb it out for the rest of the time. That opened up another opportunity for me to purchase a 170-acre former camping and recreation area with log cabins and RV sites and 3 lakes. And it was a monster, and it had been shut down for about 8 years. And the owners had gotten old, aged out. And so anyway, we had this opportunity, we got it and moved out here to get it going. I've since sold that to new owners. I'm financing it to them. So now I've moved up and become the bank. So it's just a fun journey, you know, having gone from wholesaling all the way to now I'm the bank, you know, for these. And I still have some other rentals and things like that, but that's my background. So that's why I'm like, I know what I'm talking about. And I know if you listen today and you talk to us afterward, you pair this with your existing real estate strategies, you will be even that much further ahead. So without further ado, let's dive in. Okay. Little disclaimer for us. This is not legal or tax advice in general. Seek your own counsel. We will give you the best advice we know possible. Okay. We just need to give that little disclaimer. So who are we? I like to say we are privatized family banking systems experts, creating personalized strategies for individuals, families, businesses, nonprofits, helping through education and customized strategies implement the infinite banking concept. And that's what we're going to unpack today. We have to kind of preface it, have to work into it. So stay with us through the process. We're going to give you some real tangible examples. We're going to take you through the life cycle of, say, a real estate investor, a little bit of my story, but not my numbers, right? Just how someone can, he changed the flow of his money at 30. He got into fix and flips, start financing his own deals, right? That's what we want to do when we get into flips, right? We want to figure out how to finance our own deals, and then transition to buy and holds and how you finance for rental properties utilizing this strategy. Take that and transition over a 10-year period and build an additional $150,000 net cash value growth even while you're doing your real estate, above and beyond your real estate, and how this exact same vehicle throughout your whole life will also take you into retirement, where you can supplement 6-figure retirement. And so we're going to unpack this today. So I'm going to kick this over to Mike, and we're going to dive in here.
Yeah, so it's a bunch of essential questions to really think about, right? So would you rather pay taxes now or later? And I think we have a poll of this. So Alexa, if you could hit that poll, we'd love to hear your thoughts on this. And then we'll show it at the end here, right? Now or later, would you rather pay taxes? Oh, interesting.
Interesting.
Never.
Yep.
Yeah, Alan says never. And you know what? That would be the ideal. That would be the ideal. We didn't put that in there.
And we're not going to call it out, I promise. We're not going to say, hey, this person answered it. But it's just interesting to see the perspective. And yeah, if you haven't seen the poll, check it out. Oh man, look at that. Even split. We'll show the results here in a second. I don't know if you guys can see the results. We'll give it about 5 more seconds.
Interesting.
Yeah, fascinating. Let's see it. Let's see the results. What do we got?
All right. So we've got a 50-50 split on now and later. And so we'll kind of get into that. And that's a really interesting perspective, seeing that it's 50-50, because we'll also obviously share some things about that. Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah. Another one.
All right. So if you, hold on, let me get this out of the
If you
screen.
had $30,000, would you make more money loaning it out at 6% amortized for 5 years? Or would you make more money at 4% CD? Okay, another poll. Would you make more money loaning it out at 6% amortized or 4% CD for 5 years? Okay, I'm not going to leave this on very long. Go ahead and it says amortized loan is what we mean, but yeah, 4% or 6%. Anyway, we will tie this back in as well. We're just kind of laying some of the groundwork on this. Okay. Okay, that's good. Everybody. What do we got? What are the no? Let's see what the results are for that, and then we can come back to it. About 75% said 6% makes more than 4%. Seemed obvious, right? Okay. Next question. We'll tie these all back in.
So do you think taxes will go up during your lifetime or down during your lifetime? Sorry if I stutter, there's poll questions popping up in my face a lot. So do you think taxes will go up or down? Beautiful.
Yeah, I think that's the general consensus.
Yeah, that's great. So right now we're at 100%. Taxes will go up.
All right, let's see those results. Okay, so now we know where everybody stands.
Awesome. Very good. Very good. Thank you guys for participating. We love participation. And so, all right. When it comes to your money, what would you like to do with it, right? How would you like to have it? When do you want it? And why do you want it? Right? So when it comes to your money, these are things to think about as you're going through this, as we're going through this.
And I think it's important. We ask these questions like this isn't a poll, you know, but it's really, we spend so much time, right, educating and learning about real estate to make more money, right? Why do you want to do real estate? Well, so I can make money, passive income, free cash flow, right? These kinds of things. But why do we want to make the money? I think that's an important, genuine question that we need to answer ourselves and just have that answer. So I always like to just kind of dig in on that a little bit and like knowing the why.
Yeah, your why is super important with anything, whether it's business, real estate, money. So what are your real estate goals, right? Thinking about your goals. Where do you want to take real estate? Do you want to become financially free, right? That's a lot of what real estate is let me get out of my day job so I can have financial freedom, right? And so why are you here today? What do you want to take from today? What do you want to learn today? Is there a golden nugget that you're seeking today? And so we'll get into that.
Let me ask you guys, what keeps you up at night? Think about it. What's the number one thing that may keep you up at night in general? Besides, your aches and pains. So the interesting poll came out a couple of years ago, actually, but it's not changed. Money was the chief related worry, right? Keeping people up at night. That's no surprise, right? 77% of Americans are anxious about their financial situation. Retirement is the chief money related worry. Not really a surprise, right? And cost of living, another concern, debt, another concern. And but what I thought was interesting on this poll was how it talks about when stressed, people are less likely to do these certain things. What, save, plan their spending, even make a shopping list, right? That's planning, right? Plan ahead and cover unexpected costs. But thinking about long-term goals for even a few seconds can help reverse the negative impact of stress, right? So think long range, right? That's what we talk about. And we're going to kind of tie that in today. What we're doing today, we're thinking long range when we're setting up our real estate goals, right? We're thinking down the road, really, what's our end goal? We like passive income, right? So we are thinking long range. So when it comes to building wealth and turbocharging these strategies, you got to think long range as well. You got It's not get rich quick.
Yeah, and a lot of people, I think here in America, we have an idea that we want to hit the lottery and we want that, quick turnaround. But at the same time, if we don't plan for the long term, if we don't plan that long-term game, we'll never hit that big financial success, that big play, without having that plan in place, without having a plan. So here at Unbridled Wealth and in general, they teach there's two types of people. We teach that there's three types of people, right? The first type of person that we believe that there is this is the debtor, right? And so this is somebody who, goes to the car lot. They want to finance a car, finance a house, right? And so what they do is they take out a loan, right? They get a loan and they pay that loan back over time, whether that's 5, 30, 10 years, and then they get back to financial zero, right? They get back to that purple line right there. Then they have to go in and take out another loan in order to get back to that financial zero, in order to own something new or buy another thing. The next individual is the saver. Now, these are the Dave Ramseys. This was me and my wife. This was me and my family, where we were like, let's save, 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 save. And then we spend down, right? And we get back to financial zero after liquidating. And then we have to save again. We have to reclimb, which, obviously you are able to save, you're able to buy things cash, and that's great. That's fantastic. But there's a different way. There's a better way. And when we learned that this way was out there, it kind of opened up our minds. And that's the wealth creator, right? What if what we do today, what if we never lose our capital, right? And we know that some debt is good debt, and then we allow our money to compound over years and years, so that over time we leave this legacy, this generational legacy at the end of our lives, but also we're able to utilize it throughout our lives. And that was one of the biggest concerns with me and my family, was we wanted to make sure what we had today was not squandered, but we were good stewards with our wealth, so that we would put it somewhere where it would continue to grow, but then we have access so that we could take advantage of what the opportunities are in front of us. And so that's the wealth creator. So Albert Einstein says we can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created it. And that's such a wise statement, because we still have financial issues, even though the government has come out with financial strategies, and we keep doing the same things over and over again, which is a form of insanity. And so it's about thinking different. And this is an outside the box thinking that has been cultivated for years and years. So where do we put our money, right? Where are you putting your money? What are you doing with your money? Is there a better way, right? Well, the biggest place that we put our money is in the banks, right? And so the banks house all of our money. But what are the banks doing, right? What are the banks doing with our money? And that's what we really have to ask, because that's where we're housing everything. When we're buying real estate, we're putting our money in the banks. When we're doing saving, when we're, the banks hold it all. And so we really have to ask some questions about the banks. And so if you want to hit the next one. What are the banks doing? They're using fractional reserve banking, right? So this fractional reserve banking system is really how the banks are making all their money, and why they have all the best real estate, and why they're doing what they're doing. And fractional reserve banking, we're going to get into for a second here, just to kind of show what's going on. Here, what we have is in April of 1992, the 12% required reserve went from 12% to 10%, and this action reduced required reserves by $8.9 billion. So the reserve maintenance period in 2020 went from 10% to 0%, and the required reserves went down by an estimated $200 billion. And so are banks able to kind of sustain what they say they have?
So this fractional reserve banking system, there's a rule. Basically, the Fed says, hey, you got to keep X% on reserve, right? That's what they, and as far as the public, we hear it that way. We're like, okay, cool, they got to keep some money on reserve, and that's how we hear it. What we don't hear is, but what do they get to do with the rest of it? That's what we're not taught. And so, as Mike was just saying, it used to be a 12% reserve, and it got reduced in the 90s down to 10%. COVID hit, they reduced that reserve down to 0, which means how much money do they have to keep in reserves?
Nothing.
None. Let me show you what that looks like in practice. I think Mike's going to show us here.
Yeah, so you have people putting $3,000 into the bank here, right? So all these individuals are taking their money, putting it into the bank, the storehouse, where they're housing their money, right? And then you have the banks here, right? The banks are keeping 10%, and we saw that in the 90s. That's what they were keeping. Now it's 0, but let's say they're keeping 10% as a reserve. That's $300. But now they're loaning out the rest to other people that need loans. So that's $2,700 going out to other people. Now these people take that money and they deposit it into the banks as well. So these people deposit $2,700 of the bank's loaned money to the banks. And now the banks loan, they take 10%, they loan out $2,400. Now these people take their money and they're going to put it into their bank accounts, right? It's pretty redundant, but this is what the banks are doing. They're multiplying their money, and now they deposit that $2,400. And so what happens is there's $8,260 that was deposited by the actual deposits of $813. And so the banks are only keeping $813 in real money. The rest is being loaned out. And so it's absolutely wild to see that what they owe people or what they have out is only the 10% of what they have in their reserves.
And this was before COVID. And imagine what a desperate situation it is right now. And we don't have time. I've done webinars in the past 2-3 months now. We've done several webinars about the banking crisis, right? So we can, you can get on my website and check those out sometime. But just all these, the banking crisis, and this is part of the problem, right?
Yeah, definitely a big problem. So what if the banks run out of money, right? This is a big question because this is where we hold most of our assets and where we're doing deals and business from. So what happens if this happens? Well, we've got a bank run, a short little clip here.
Remembers this.
Michael, behave. Michael, behave.
There's something wrong. The bank won't give someone their money.
Well, I'm going to get mine. Come along, young man. Every penny in this.
And mine too. And give me mine too.
Stop all payments. Stop all payments.
Is that a familiar scene or what?
Yeah. I mean, we look at Silicon Valley, we look at, these recent banks, right, that have struggled with this. And I think it's more real than ever right now. So isn't my money insured, right? We have the federal government insuring our money. And so we ask that question, isn't our money insured? And so let's take a peek to see if our money is insured. And right, we see this is the FDIC insurance fund. And we see a minimum reserve of 1.35% of the total amount that is owed, right? And so it's staggering when you look. And you want to explain a little bit more?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, these guys, they reserve, we know, okay, your $250,000 deposit is insured. And that's what went on with Silicon Valley Bank, right? Almost all the depositors had above 250,000, and so only 250,000 of their money was insured. And it was a wild mess. These numbers, this was 2021, and 9.5 trillion in insured deposits, but they had 121 billion, which is less, in the FDIC fund, 9.4 trillion uninsured, 9.4 trillion uninsured. Okay, but that's okay. During a previous administration, the rule was changed where the FDIC can now borrow from the U.S. Treasury. So that's where they'll get their money. Well, where's the Treasury get their money? They get it from the Federal Reserve. Where's the Federal Reserve get their money? Well, they print it, right? And I love the quote. It says, "Hey, the Treasury is financing the Fed. The lender of last resort has its own lender of last resort." Anybody ever played the game Monopoly? What if you run out of money when you're playing the game? What's it say to do? Get slips of paper, just write some numbers on it. That's kind of what we're doing these days.
Yeah, that's
Kind of
reality.
it's fascinating.
So where else do we put our money, right? This begs the question, because obviously we see some of the crises going on. And so we have to have other strategies, right? We have to do something called diversification. We have to diversify where we're putting our money. And so what we're going to do, there's a few things that we can do, right? I'm Italian, right? I'm Italian from New Jersey. And so what we do is we like to stockpile currency under our pillows. And so that's one way, right? But just stockpiling cash and having cash on hand is one way to do it, right? Purchasing gold and silver, right? Physically owning gold and silver. It's an asset class. It's going to appreciate, it's going to depreciate, it's going to move, but it's something that is physically owned. And that's important. Right, crypto and decentralized money. There's a lot of risk in it, but it is an asset class. It is a class in itself. And so with that, there's ways to diversify in those as well.
And I always tell people, like, get educated, right? Educate yourself about it, because I don't think it's going away. And at least understand it the best you can, right? It can be complex, but it is a way to diversify money, right? Same with precious metals, gold and silver and stuff. That's something that no matter what happens with the dollar, you can use anywhere in the world at some point, right?
Right. Yeah, and then we like to talk about real estate, right? Real estate is obviously why we're here, right? It's recession-proof housing. It's building a portfolio, right? You appreciate the asset, right? You're hoping for a 3% plus appreciation on your property, maybe a renter in there, right? With buy and holds, you get that the value, which this is one of my favorites, is the real estate. And so you get a lot of value in that as well. So that's a great place to store money. But we also look, and we'll get into this a little bit more, as equity as value right away, when equity untapped is not necessarily value. And the ability to use that is not super flexible if there's not a plan in place. And so it's important to know how and what to do with real estate. But then the last one would be an alternate warehouse, right? Infinite banking, right? Here's a place to store capital to then work in these other asset classes and these diversified portfolios, right? So working infinite banking, where it becomes really powerful is when you couple it with real estate, when you're able to, when you couple it with a business, when you're able to put it to use, creating more wealth is where it becomes super, super powerful. And so Nelson Nash really did a great job in the Infinite Banking book here, Becoming Your Own Banker. And so we highly, highly recommend reading this, and we'll kind of get into that a little bit as well. So Yogi Berra says, you've got to be very careful if you don't know where you're going, because you might not get there. And so having that plan in place, having these strategies in place, diversifying and making sure that you're in the right place and knowing where you want to go so that you can get there is super, super important. So what do we need, right? What are the pieces for the game? What are the pieces for infinite banking? With that, what we need is the vehicle, and the vehicle that we utilize, and it's not it's not a sexy vehicle. It's not something that but it is the only vehicle that works like it does. And so this is a properly structured dividend paying whole life insurance policy from a mutual insurance carrier. And all those are different bullets because they're all super important, right? So mutual insurance carrier is super important. You can go get a life insurance policy. If it's not from a mutual carrier, it's not going to be for your benefit, right? You can have a whole life, but if it's not properly structured, it's not going to be what you need to actually utilize to your most efficient way and what your goals are, right? And so the vehicle is super important. And so working with somebody that understands infinite banking, that understands life insurance, it is really, really important in this case, and when you're doing infinite banking.
Yeah, and I think it's important. Like, it's not, as I say, your grandparents' old life insurance policy, right? It is structured different. It is not the life insurance policy that certain financial gurus, who I won't name today, rail against. They're misrepresenting it, and it is structured differently the way they're describing it. Anyway, properly structured and dividend paying from a mutual carrier. So there's two types of life insurance companies. There's stock-owned companies and there's mutual carriers. So stock-owned companies, its interests are for the stockholders, right? Mutual carriers, its interests are for the policy owners. As a policy owner, you're one of the owners of the company, thus entitled to the profits, which come in the form of dividends. So that's why we say dividend paying from a whole life, dividend paying from a mutual carrier, right? Whole life, nothing new. We are not inventing this up. It has been around for a very, very long time. The products have changed. The way you can structure it has changed. But it's been around since 1700s. I love that it was first called the Corporation for Relief of Poor and Distressed Widows and Children of Presbyterian Ministers. That's a shortened version. So I say that 10 times fast, right? It got started because ministers were being supported by the church throughout their whole life. When they would pass away, the family was no longer supported by the church, thus left destitute. And so that's how this idea got started. And it's a wonderful, wonderful way when you start digging into it on how it gets started.
Yeah, and so these companies, right, actually carry a ton of life insurance, right? We know these banks, right? Bank of America, $20.5 billion. Wells Fargo has $21.3 billion of life insurance. There's so when people ask, oh, is this a safe thing? I mean, if the banks are doing it, and this is where we hold all of our money, it's a pretty safe bet that this is a very safe vehicle and a very safe avenue. The other thing with this is during the Great Depression, I believe it was, the insurance carriers were the ones that actually bailed the banks out. It wasn't the federal government. So the insurance carriers were able to help aid the banks in recouping and recovering and funding them back to health, which is pretty amazing. So these companies also understand it, right? We have some big name companies here. One of those companies, Walt Disney, right? And Walt Disney started Disneyland utilizing his life insurance policy and taking a loan on his life insurance policy when he wasn't able to get a loan, right? McDonald's, right? Ray Kroc was able to utilize multiple policies, I believe, to buy out the people who invented McDonald's or started McDonald's, which is really, really unique. And so did all these other companies understand the concept of how insurance works and why it's beneficial.
And it's fun. I've heard with the Ray Kroc, I've heard he with the two policies he used one of them to start a marketing campaign on his newest mascot, Mr. Ronald McDonald. That's right. So Mr. Ronald McDonald wouldn't be around if it weren't for that policy, right? Maybe.
All right, it's true. And then who else? Some of these names are super familiar, right? We've got President Trump and President Biden, right? President Ronald Reagan. So people out there in the Congress and all these places are doing it. I don't know if you want to share this fun story with Biden.
Yeah, this article, after he had to disclose his finances, this article came out, just pointed out, which I thought was very interesting, how he owns 0 investment products and 6 whole life policies. And so when you start seeing stuff like that, the more you dig around, you know, all these companies, all these banks, all these popular faces and dignitaries, and what do they know? What are they up to, right? How do we get this common knowledge?
Right. And that's the thing is there's something called common knowledge and uncommon knowledge. And this image of an iceberg, I think, really dictates what we know and what we're told and taught, which is what's above the water, right? But the iceberg is so much bigger underneath, and nobody really sees or talks too much about what is underneath. And that's considered the uncommon knowledge. And some of the uncommon knowledges we're going to get into today a little bit. So Nelson Nash says, if some authoritative power distributed all the money in the world equally among all the people in the world, within 10 years' time, 97% of all the money would be under the control of 3% of people. Now, why is that, right? They understand money and how to get it to flow toward them instead of away from them, right? They understand compound interest. So one of these things that is uncommon is the flow of money. Right? The flow of money. How do you get money flowing towards you instead of away from you? One of those ways is uninterrupted compounding and the understanding that compound interest, right? So it grows uninterrupted even while you're using it elsewhere. And this is so important. You know, I think it was, who said, was it Albert Einstein that said, compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it. And so it's important to understand compounding, but understanding what it means to have it uninterrupted, right? And so when you borrow against, when you utilize that money, then you are able to have that money still growing while you're able to use it. And so you're really having that grow uninterrupted. So here we have, and this goes into our previous slide where we answered, and I think this was this 50-50? I don't know if we had the result. Can we get the results back?
No, I think 6% won out most. About 75% said 6% amortized,
right?
Without pace, 4% CD.
Okay, so yeah, so 75%. So that would be $34,799. But in the CD at 4%, although you're earning a less interest, you would have made $36,629, right? That's the power of uninterrupted compounding.
And I think it's important, and I always tell people, like, because I say always do the math, right? It is not just about, say, rate of return. It's how is it growing, you know? And then this, the amortized interest, right? You're paying, interest is being paid on a lesser amount year over year over year. In a CD, 4%, the whole is compounding year over year over year. So that's how the power of uninterrupted compounding can outpace a higher interest rate. Yeah. So we can't always just look at the 6% is more than 4%, right? And this blew my mind the first time I saw examples like this. I was like, I never thought about that. And so ever since then, I was okay, well, what's it doing, right? What are the real numbers, right? But that's what's happening inside of your policy, which will show you how this vehicle will grow uninterrupted year over year over year throughout your entire life.
Yeah. And so part of that, you know, obviously is the uninterrupted compounding, but then the lost opportunity cost, right? A lot of times we put our money into to vehicles that can compound for us, but we don't have access to them. And so what's the value of a dollar that you don't have access to, right? And so that is lost opportunity cost. If you don't have access to that money, you're not able to take part in the real estate deals, right? Part of that uncommon knowledge is income tax-free growth. Somebody said they don't want to pay taxes. Well, there's money that you can earn that is tax-free long-term. And so that's part of the strategy as well. Use now and retire later. I think a lot of times we think that we're just setting up for retirement, but it's important to have capital now. I believe there was a statistic out there that said around 80% of 401ks are tapped before the appropriate year, and so they're taking 10% penalties and getting taxed on certain things. And so it's important to say, yeah, we want to retire later, but we want to also make sure that you're able to grow now, right, and do real estate now. And so yeah, that's really, really important and part of the strategy.
And I think it's important, you know, of course, we are advocates for infinite banking. We were practicing it before we got into it as a career. And I truly believe in it. And when I contrast this approach with, say, as Mike just mentioned, qualified investment accounts, for example, what do qualified investment accounts do, right? Generally deferring the tax, right? Most of us were taught from day one, defer the tax. Let's push the tax off to later. That's why we asked, would you rather pay taxes now or later? And most of you said later. And we had 50-50 on that one?
I think we were 50-50.
Split now or later. And I asked the question, there's a place maybe for investments, but I asked the question, if you think taxes are going up in your lifetime, 100% of you said yes. If you think taxes are going up in your lifetime, why do you want to put your money, your hard-earned money, into a vehicle that you are going to get taxed later at an unknown future rate? We have no idea. We would never take loans like that, right? We would never take a loan from somebody and you say, how much? And they say, well, we don't know yet. But down the road, when we need our money, we'll let you know, and then we'll let you know how much we're going to charge you. You wouldn't cash that check, buddy. You just wouldn't. And so it's just food for thought, right?
Yeah, no, it's good. That's really good. And then safe from investments, right? The vehicles that the IBC infinite banking concept is safe from investment boom and bust, right? It's not tied to investment products. It's got guarantees and rates of, you know, that we can tell you that this is where it's going, right? And so you know that it's safe. The loans are not tied to your credit. So it doesn't hit your credit. It will not show up in your credit, which is fantastic for a lot of people and for businesses and all that. Unstructured loans is also something that is amazing. When somebody's not knocking on your door saying, hey, we need our money back. Hey, we need this minimum payment, right? You decide the loan terms, right? We can help you amortize it. We can help you put it together. But if you're not able to do next month, they're not going to come knocking for it and make sure that you get it and fee you and all that kind of stuff. So it's a really amazing strategy when it comes to even the loan structure of things. And then I touched on this a little bit, but multitasking dollars, right? Having your money work in two places at once, right? If your money can work, for me, purchasing a business last year, now I utilize my policy. So my policy is still working. And then now my business is also earning me 1% and earning me money as well. And so that money's working in two places at once. How can you do that? This vehicle allows you to do that. The last thing, which we'll touch on a little later as well, is the generational wealth transfer. How can you leave a legacy, right? A lot of times we talk about legacy and want to leave the best legacy. One is by teaching and educating this stuff, but also the other is by leaving the children in a better place than you were left, right? So having that generational wealth transfer is really, really important. And then we haven't touched on the need for life insurance. And so a lot of times there's so many ancillary benefits. There's these benefits that we just touched on, but the need and the umbrella of life insurance to cover the piggy bank, to cover the house, right? To cover liabilities is also really, really important. And I feel like I don't touch on that enough, because I love all the other things that come along with the infinite banking concept, where I'm like, man, go, go, go. But also knowing that if something were to happen, that my family's taken care of, that my kids are taken care of, that things are in place, that they won't owe anything to anybody is super important, and is at ease to my soul and myself.
Yeah, and I agree, Mike. I think it's this need for life insurance, you know, in my own personal life and how it's affected my life has been important. Like it's a necessary component. If you do not have life insurance and you have people depending on you, you need to get life insurance. You need to, when you hang up today, you need to pick up the phone and call Mike and say, I need to get life insurance now. It's important. You know, a little bit of my story is, you know, my father got cancer when I was in high school. And by my freshman year in college, he was diagnosed terminal, and he passed away halfway through my sophomore year in college. And I remember being home visiting on a weekend, and him, you know, walking into the room. He was so sick, and he was writing down on a piece of. He walked into the room. He started writing on a piece of paper in the kitchen. Me and my mom were sitting there, just watching him, and he wrote on a paper, and he did something, and then he walked off, and we were like, what's he doing? And we walked over to the paper, and mom looked at it, and she said, well, he's totaling up his life insurance, you know, and it was a heart-wrenching, but also it showed like that was his concern, was like, what am I leaving them with? Because he knew his time was coming to an end, right? And had he not done that, it would have been a whole different ballgame. My sister was 4 years younger than me. She had a ways to go in high school still. My mom, you know, I was in college at that point. I had moved back home after that and help out, but that life insurance supported my mother for so many years. It got my sister through the rest of high school. It got us through college. It helped finish paying for colleges, and it just, my trajectory would have been different, right? So I'm an advocate for it. I'm like, it's important because you don't know who's going to need it after you and how good it will come on. Okay. So that's my tangent on life insurance. Let's dive into this. I want to give you some real tangible examples on how it applies to a real estate investor. I usually do this in a couple of hours, just this section. And so we are going to bulldoze through it. And you're going to be drinking from a fire hose. Call us, schedule a meeting. We will go back over it with you. We will slow it down. We will show you some other examples and take you through it. But I want you to see how one single vehicle can take a person throughout their entire life and benefit them and do so many different things. Okay, so we're going to kick this off. I'm going to skip this part for time, but we have an investor who say he's going to get into wholesaling at age 30. He had saved up $25,000 to start his wholesaling business and was going to go all in. And talking, saying, hey, I wonder, instead of going from savings direct to business, what happens if we change the flow of money? We talked about that a little bit earlier. What happens if we change the flow of the money and put our money through a policy first and pull that money out? Okay. So the goals, this guy, he wanted to, of course, be his own bank, figure out how to finance his own deals, also fund retirement, and have generational legacy. Okay. So this next slide is what we call an illustration. If you've never seen one, we're not going to get too into this column of numbers, but I just wanted to show you what it looks like. Okay. The strategy we came up for him, and mind you, everybody's strategy is different. Yes. Let me come back. Everybody's strategy is different. Forget how many zeros are on these examples. We have clients doing $200 a month. I have a client doing $300,000 a year, and everything in between. Okay. So the number of zeros don't matter. Understand the principles, and we will work with you and figure out what works for you in your situation. And that's where, Alexa talked about, and you saw in the post, this financial review that we want to offer. That's where it's important. We want to know your situation before we can make an appropriate recommendation. It is not. A lot of people ask, well, how much to get started? I said, well, I don't know. I don't know you, and I don't know your situation. And so we have to talk, and we have to find out what's appropriate for you, right? Maybe you can't get insured, but maybe your child can, or your adult child, or your juvenile child, or maybe a parent, or maybe, you know what I mean? There's lots of options. So don't stress about the peripheral stuff. Just understand the principles of what it's doing and how it works as we go through this. His strategy, $25,000 a year, he was going to push through a policy. He is not out $25,000 a year, mind you. He's going to utilize that cash value throughout his life. So this is not extra money you have to tuck away and you can't touch it. Okay. I'm going to show it in graph form. It's a little bit easier to understand. And somebody slow me down if I need to slow down, but I want to show you. The yellow row is the cumulative outlay of premiums. The purple row right below that is the cumulative available cash value that particular year. In his case, for a 30-year-old putting $25K a year in a couple years ago, okay? Now, year one is your greatest loss of access to your money. Where he put $25,000 in, he can access about 18.6 of it right away. I'm talking if he put 25 in day one, day two, he could pull 18 of it right back out and utilize it. And that's what we intended to do with him. This is not set it and forget it. This is not a stuck savings account. You don't get penalized for using it. Okay. So he's starting his banking system. So think about it. Your cost of starting your bank effectively for him that year was the difference, the 6,300 difference. However, the next year he put another 25 in. Now he's got a cumulative 43 available. By the third year, he put 25 in and he's got 68 available. A lot of people say, well, no, wait. That's not a good return on my money. And I say, now hold on a sec. One, it's not an investment product. So let's change the way we think about it first. It's an asset that's going to grow. Okay. And two, do the math here. 43,000 cash value plus 25,000. So it's already growing more than he's putting in. Okay. By the third year. In almost all policies that we structure, somewhere between year 2 and 4, this happens. The cash value starts growing more than you're paying in. On the average between year 7 to 10 is when the cash value cumulative exceeds your outlay, meaning you have more cash value than you've paid in. It's basically you've made up for the first year or two, right? But you have access to it along the way. Take this guy into retirement, see what the growth will do. And we're going to break this down. But he's got a little over $500,000 paid in throughout his whole life. He has been borrowing it and paying it back throughout his whole life. And he has amassed $1.4 million in cash value. So that $844,000 extra. Okay. We're going to break this down. Same numbers in the illustration, just to point out. Okay. So what's that look like in practice? So in his case, instead of going straight to the bank account, from bank account to business, we were going to push it through a policy first. So he was going to put that 25K, start a policy. And then remember, I just showed you he has 18 available. So he's going to borrow 18,000 out, use it for marketing, earnest money. This is wholesaling. Okay. First year. I never met a wholesaler first year quit his day job. Okay. Maybe it's happened. Maybe you have. That's awesome. But most people keep their day job that first year when they're wholesaling, right? 18,000 out. He's going to do a modest 4 wholesales that year, make about 45 grand. He's going to take those profits since he's still working anyway, and he's going to pay back that 18 loan he just took, pay back the policy. He's also going to take the extra and pay the next year's premium with it. Okay, so that's how he is now funding all future premiums through his business. In his case, right now he's got 43,000 built up. The second year, he's going to take 25,000 out. He knows what he's doing. He's going to double down, do double the wholesales that year, right? Pay back the loan, pay the next year's premium. Rinse and repeat, right? Now you've got extra money. Now you're in the black, as they say, right? And a couple years in, 2 years of this, in his case, he's ready to move to fix and flips, right? He's thinking long range, right? Take it slow and steady wins the race, man. So he's going to move into fix and flips. By year 2, he had 43,000. You could do a small a rehab, right? Could you fund a small rehab by year 2 or 3 on the construction side, right? $43,000 rehab, $68,000 rehab. So here's the cash value accumulating year over year on those years in your policy. So over these years, he's going to get into fix and flips. Now stick with me. I'm going to show you some fix and flip numbers. Okay, this is a deal analysis I used to use when I was doing flips all the time. Don't get caught up on the peripheral stuff on the right-hand side. I'm going to show you an example here. The deal was $250,000 purchase, $35,000 rehab with a $350 ARV and a 3-month hold. You with me? Now, utilizing hard money and private money over here, we're going to do hard money and private money, 10, 12 and 4, 10 and 2. Okay. If you did the math with that 3-month hold, he would net about 19.8 on that deal. Okay, modest, I guess, for a small flip, right? But what happens if instead of, say, private money at 10 and 2, you could borrow from your own policy, right? Borrow that from your banking system. Only charge yourself 5% interest. So now down here, your net profit grew from 19 to 21-ish, right? However, that's not all it did. Your cash value in your policy also grew an additional 3,600 that particular year. Okay. Which we'll try to explain that.
Can you go one more time? Can you explain that one more time just so everybody gets that?
Okay. Private money, hard money pulled in 19.8. Standard deal. If you borrowed the construction side from your policy instead, you do, because of the interest savings, instead of 10 and 2, you're only at 5%, you would net a little bit more, 21.5, but you would also have cash value growth that particular year inside that policy.
So this is really showing where multitasking dollars is playing into effect, right? You're making your money in real estate, but then also your policy is working. So I just wanted to reiterate that.
That's right. Now, what happened? People say, "Oh, I could pay cash and make way more." Okay, true story. Pay cash. Look at your net profit jumped up to 39.7. That's great. That is your taxable burden, if you will. Okay, but you also have to factor in things like lost opportunity cost, and you are taxed on this. Okay, right? So what happens if instead of cash, you had the whole amount inside the policy and you borrowed all of it from the policy? What changes? Let me go back. All cash, 39.7. Inside the policy, because of lower interest, you don't make quite as much, 35.9. However, that same year, you grew 3,600 in cash value, right? So your profit was about the same, but what's different? You're taxed on this. You're not taxed on this. Does that make sense? So we've lowered our taxable burden here, and we get gains inside the policy. Plus, they're unstructured loans. You loaned yourself the money, you decide the loan terms. When you crack down that wall and whatever was behind that wall just added 30 days to your rehab, it doesn't matter. Your lenders, they don't care. Pay us, buddy. And then your unstructured loan, you decide the loan terms. You say, great, I can't, we're just going to extend payments. I can't pay it back this month. I'm not going to pay this month, whatever it is. Plus deductible interest, right? You loaned your real estate business the money. You charge your real estate business interest rate, and then your business will deduct the interest.
Yep.
Okay. And it's growing uninterrupted inside the policy. Okay. So do that for a few years, right? So he's going to do it for a few years, and then he's going to move into buy and holds, right? So buy and holds. Now, let's say he's gotten to a point where he's got $200,000 built up in his policy. Get your typing fingers ready. Would you, if you had $200,000 not in Florida, would you pay cash for one house or a down payment on 4? Right? I don't know. I don't think you can do that in Florida.
Hey, would I be able to ask you a question real quick? A good one came in that I think is pertinent to what we're talking about. So when you borrow your own money, can you establish your repayment interest rate, or will it be at the market rate of time of borrowing? Right. So when you go back to that last slide, we saw that 5%. What would you say to that?
Yeah, if you're doing, so the 5%, so policies have, the products we work with right now have a fixed and variable interest rate option. This year, fixed rate option for the whole life of the policy, meaning the whole rest of your life that you have that policy, you can always borrow from yourself, borrow against yourself at 4%. Variable is variable. Okay. Right now it's like 5.1. I think yesterday it was 5.1. Okay. And so that's how the interest rate gets established. At the time you take the loan, you choose from your policy, am I going to take the fixed loan or the variable? Most carriers have only a variable option. You know, and without getting into the weeds, you know, that affects different things, you know, but again, do the math, right? Let's do the math, run the numbers, what makes sense, you know. Fixed right now is low. During COVID, that 4% fixed, people were kind of shrugging their shoulders. They were not too impressed. They're like, yeah, I can go get a regular loan at 2% right now, you know. But a couple of things, you go get a regular loan at 2%, you will never recapture that money. You're borrowing somebody else's money, paying them the 2%, right? So you'll never recapture that money. You borrow from yourself, you'll recapture that money, get to use it again and again and again and again and again. And your policy is growing uninterrupted year over year. So let me talk about that, right? If you have 200,000 in here, put a down payment on 4 houses. Okay. I made this a couple months ago. Interest rates hadn't spiked yet, so I'll update these numbers soon. It still works, right? Down payment on 4 houses. Okay. Buy 4 houses, finance the rest of it, traditional M&R, monthly rent, etc. Okay. And we ran the numbers and set each of the 4 properties to pay back that 50,000 that they each borrowed. Set it up over a 10-year period. Okay, just to show you. So we're gonna do a 10-year note, if you will, with each property, and they're gonna pay that principal back 30-year on the 150, whatever, right? But why? Why do we want to pay back that 50? So we can use it again and again and again, right? Over a 10-year period, that cash value will have $148,000 net growth above and beyond. This is net. This is above cost of insurance. Okay, this $148,000 gain, if you will, inside the policy, not taxable because you will always access it as a loan, and the IRS does not tax on loans. Okay, and it's growing uninterrupted. If I took 200,000 out here, let's say I didn't pay any of it back until 10 years has gone by. I keep paying my premiums. It'll be 380. See out here it says 586. It'll be 386, right? So it'll grow as if the money never left. And the day you pay back, then you're back up to 586. But it'd be 386 if you held it out that entire 10 years. So it grows as if that money never left. There's no other vehicle out there like that. You put your money in savings account, get a return on your savings, you know, your 1%, whatever they're offering nowadays. And when you pull money out, it's only growing on what's left in there, right? Any qualified account, any account that's growing, it's only growing on what you left in there, right? Okay. Now, $148,000 net. I could go and buy, basically put a down payment on, you know, 3 more houses with that. And over a 10-year period, I will have repaid it back. So I can go buy 4 more. So that's 7 properties now that I can go buy effectively, right? So every time it jumps 50,000, I go put another down payment down, and just that property is going to pay it back. So what have I done with my numbers, right? Not only have I gotten the rental income off those 4 properties, I got an extra, effectively $14,800 a year extra to utilize for something else. plus the home equity growth. Okay. And speaking of home equity,
Awesome. Yeah, that was, I mean, super in depth, right? And super amazing. And so equity versus liquidity, I'm just going to touch briefly because we're kind of running out of time a little bit, but we have the little red house here, right? And the house has a value, right? The value is the property value. Attached to that is going to be the mortgage, which is that down arrow in the middle. And then we have equity, right? Everybody loves equity, but equity untapped really isn't that good unless you're selling or flipping or whatever. But how could we utilize the equity within our homes to actually do something with them, right? And so what I would propose is an equity source, right? Such like a policy where maybe you could tap that equity, and we've seen this done. We have clients that have done this where mortgages, right? You bring your mortgage, it's the cheapest loan you'll ever get or ever have. And so the value will fluctuate based on market, right? On the market. You have no control of that, which means that your equity grows by the value increasing, but also your mortgage decreasing. And so the equity is not controlled by us either, unless you're paying a lot into your mortgage. But if you were able to tap that, put it into an equity source, as you continue to pay down that mortgage, no matter what the value of the market does, right? No matter what the value of the market does, your equity source is going to stay the same and continue to go up, right? And so let's say all of a sudden the housing market falls off, right? The property value decreased, your mortgage stayed the same. It's not going to go anywhere unless you're paying it down, but your equity is now depleted. So in the time of the time where you want liquidity, and if your liquidity was put in or just in equity, right? You no longer have it in a devalued market. But if you transferred that and had that in an equity source, such as a policy like this, right? Now you have the capital to now take advantage of the low values that we would see in a downturned market. And so what this does is it hedges and allows you to utilize properties and mortgages and equities that your properties are giving you to put those into use and to scoop up properties when most people need capital to scoop them up. So there's a lot of different ways. And I think it's more important to have liquidity than it is to have equity, right? Because liquidity is going to help you with those future deals. And so that's just a little something of how you can utilize equity inside of properties as you're scooping up properties. Maybe you have one on your home mortgage right now, and you have a ton of equity in there. It's good to be able to utilize for that downturned market, because when all of a sudden the market flips, that equity disappears. And so having that alternate equity source is really, really important. You get the next one. So what's borrowing from or against, right? So we have you, and then we have the insurance carrier, and then we have the family bank, right? And so we want to borrow money. So you call the carrier, you say, hey, I need a loan for such and such amount, right? And so you call, and the carrier says, well, you have this much inside of your private family bank, right? Inside of your IBC policy. They then give you an interest rate, right, of 3.5 to 5%, right? And then they give you that cash, and you are able to go and scoop up those properties, right? So that's how this works, is you're borrowing against the insurance carrier, and then while your private family bank is uninterrupted, it's growing on its own because they put that money in there and it's moving. And that's how that uninterrupted compounding works. You're borrowing from the carrier, not from your bank.
yep. Yeah, and it's just a fascinating vehicle, like how this can work, right? And I was always like, oh, this is sorcery, the way your money grows and the way you can make it work, do the math, right? So anyway, yeah, it's growing uninterrupted because you're borrowing against the policy. They're leveraging the policy. They're leveraging the death benefit, if you will. They know it's a whole life policy. They know they're going to pay that death benefit out someday. So what they're doing is giving you access to a portion of it via the cash value, but they're going to leverage it, right? When they loan you the money, that's leverage. So if they loaned you 200,000, if you borrowed against your policy for 200,000 and you passed away the next day, they're going to reduce $200,000 from the death benefit and pay the difference, right? So it's just leverage. Okay. Let's a couple questions real quick. There's lots of good carriers out there, mutual carriers. Emeritus is our preferred choice. And for a lot of reasons, we work with them a lot, and they are movers and shakers and willing to work with people who are utilizing infinite banking more. They're more willing to than several carriers, and it's a mutual carrier as well.
Their portfolio too is a very safe portfolio, right? When doing the inside, like looking at the inside of what they're doing, they're a very conservative company, which is something that we really stand for. We'd rather have somebody over deliver than under deliver, and I think they do a good job of staying conservative and not over promising things.
Right. Lucian's answer question about would a regular CPA be knowledgeable on this strategy, or would you need someone who is more knowledgeable on this? That's a great question. I'm glad you asked that. 100%, most will not know how to properly utilize this strategy. I am a firm believer you need to get someone who is highly educated in infinite banking in its purest form, and that is, via Nelson Nash, becoming your own banker. There's a lot of variants out there, right? There's a lot of people, and if they won't use that term, infinite banking, I would put caution out there. Like, I'm not saying they're all bad. I'm just saying put caution out there. Be discretionary. Get a authorized IBC practitioner, i.e. me. I went through the training through the Nelson Nash Institute, and I've done the work, right? I know it. I eat, breathe, and sleep it. Mike eat, breathes, and sleeps it, right? We know it. And
there's a lot of people, sorry to interrupt, there's a lot of people out there that say, hey, I can do IBC, and I've worked with a few clients who said, oh, my neighbor does IBC, and then it's not IBC, and they really just ask the carrier to design them a policy that has high cash value, and then they get into a whole mess with not understanding the ins and outs of certain things. And so it is really important to know.
I implore you not to hang up from here and call your friend who's an insurance agent and say, start me a whole life policy. I want to bank with it. I got 25 grand a year. I'll put into it. I promise you, if they don't know what they're doing, you're going to be calling us going, why doesn't this work? And we're going to show you why it's structured wrong. I've seen it happen. It's terrible. What happens because they get excited. Someone wants to sell them that policy, right? They just don't know how to structure it, whether it's intended or not, to misstructure it, but there's a proper way to structure it. Concluding that CPA question, you have your financial team, right? We are not trying to replace your financial team. Have us be part of your financial team. You, me, and your CPA sit down together, and I'll show your CPA how this works, because your CPA needs to do his CPA work for you, right? I'm not your CPA. And so let's all get on a call and work together, and that's how it works, right? It works more efficient for you. I'm going to move on. I really want to, I'm going to bulldoze through this commercial side, Mike, if that's all right, and get to the retirement and stuff, because we're going to run out of time. But taking this same policy, we've gone through life, right? He did 10 years of fix and flips. He's got $500,000 built up later in life, and what can he do with it? I want to give you one real life example really fast, and then show you, think about this through the context of rental properties even, right? This is a big example, but just to show you the possibilities, right? There's Grant Street Mansion, downtown Denver, was purchased by Stan Bolis, founder of Unbridled Companies, did this massive historic renovation on it, had a $400,000 a year mortgage with A&B Bank when he heard about infinite banking, and he said, hey, what's it look like if I put this money through a policy first, like we just talked about earlier? How much can I get out? So first year, he put 400,000 in. He could only get 260 out. It's left him 140 short. You with me? So that means he needed 540,000 that first year, right? Let me say it one more time, just to show you. He put the 400,000 through a policy first. Year one, he could not get as much out. So he needed the extra 140 that first year. Every year thereafter, that number shrinks. So the 540,000, where did he come up with it? He charged rents to his companies who's renting the building, and rents alone paid for the policy. And it's a 30-year plan, right? He's not thinking 2 years down the road. He's looking a long time down the road. And that's what this kind of policy can do, right? After 15 years, you will have amassed $6.5 million in cash value. After 30 years, $15 million in cash value. This is a $9 million spread, $9.5 million spread that he paid in versus what he has accessible to. That $9.5 million, not taxable, because they've always accessed his loans.
And the amazing thing is,
Next to
this is
$9
not,
million.
yeah, this is not including his asset in the building.
That's right.
He finished paying off the mansion in year 15. And so he has an asset fully with no mortgage on it, a beautiful asset there. But then he also has this asset class working on the side, doing some amazing things and putting it to use all over the place.
Yep. So just the possibilities, and talk with us. I love building out strategies like rental strategies, and how can we make it work? You know, I have several clients with a lot of doors, and we'll build out. I just built out one for a guy who showed him how after the third year he lives in small town Midwest. He can do 50,000 a year, purchase property, 50,000 a year, every year thereafter. Yeah. Same policy, been using it throughout your whole life. Now it's time for retirement, right? What are you going to do? I know some of you got to go. We're pushing our limits here. I see our stuff has been getting put in the chats, but if you need to go, hit this. We got about maybe 5 more minutes, 7 more minutes. And 1024wealth.com/BPMRIA. There's our emails. Take a picture of the screen. Want to offer you the Becoming Your Own Banker book. It's normally 22 bucks anywhere you get it. I got it for 16 on the site plus shipping. So feel free to text BYOB. That is Becoming Your Own Banker. Though thirsty ones, you thirsty ones out there, BYOB and your name to that number, and we'll get to info from you from there.
We
Or
have
just
some questions coming in, so we will answer these questions. Just stick around a little bit longer if that's all right, Alexa. If we could go over the time frame a little bit to finish answering those questions.
So by retirement, we've got 1.7 million built up. Let me show you this here. By retirement, we will have paid 500. This guy will have paid 590,000 throughout his entire life, utilizing it throughout his entire life. Now he's built up 1.7 million in cash value. We're going to stop funding the policy, which you see on the left. And then we're going to start borrowing against the policy $100,000 a year. One-way ticket, we are going to borrow. We are never going to pay it back. Okay. He could do this for the next 20 years. 20 years, that's $2 million he will have pulled out. Not taxable because they are accessed as loans. If he goes 20 years and passes away, it'll still pay $1.4 million to the beneficiary above and beyond that. And that, my friends, is how you have a system that will benefit you throughout your entire life, take you through retirement, and leave a legacy which can last for generations. And that's one of the major points of what we're talking about today.
And I just want to touch on, if you look at those numbers right there, right, that 590,900, right, that 590,900 was what was put in to the policy. You withdrew, or not withdrew, but borrowed $1.4 million in your retirement, right? So you borrowed a ton more for retirement, and yet you still have money left over for leaving your legacy. You still were able to help your kids, your grandkids, and pass on your legacy.
Mm-hmm. Now, how do we take it one step further? This is singularly my favorite part of every presentation, because this is why I do it, right? How do you create intergenerational legacy? How do you create the family banking system, right? And one way here, you know, I have good estate planning attorneys we can refer you to set stuff like this up if you ever wanted to. But the first generation has to start it. Somebody has to start it, right? So you, the parents, say, get your policies, get your kids insured, right? Have the beneficiary of your policies maybe be the family trust, okay? And then when you pass away, the beneficiary, that death benefit's going to fund the family bank. While you're alive, you are accessing the cash value, utilizing the cash value throughout your life. If you own the policies on your children, you can also utilize the cash value on your children while you are alive. You can at some point hand over ownership of the policy, the kids' policies, to them. And then they can access and utilize the cash value, right? But they also have the family bank, right? The policies, if you're going to let them borrow from the policies, but then you have the trust upon your passing. And that trust is the family bank. Children are also using their policy throughout their life. They're going to insure their children. And so even more policies are getting started through the generations. All of these cash values accessible by whoever owns the policies. Each death benefit beneficiary is funding the trust. The trust is getting bigger and bigger each generation. And the family bank, you never have to go to an outside bank again. You will always be able to go to the family bank, borrow from the family bank, privatized family banking systems, right? It is not, and then and that's why I say, how much money would you save in life if you never had to go to an outside bank again? You know, possibilities are endless. But do this each generation, each generation, each generation. And this could go on and on and on and on. Families like Rockefellers, they're 6 generations in, and they're still rolling because of systems like this. And that is how you create this generational wealth. So it's not what you leave behind, it's what's engraved in stone and monuments, but what is woven into the lives of others, right? I love it. It is what are you doing? What are you weaving into the lives of others, right? What are you setting up for the next generation?
Yeah. So our next steps, I saw a couple questions in there about what we can do about this situation or that situation. So for next steps, we do recommend and highly recommend that you read the book, Becoming Your Own Banker. It really opens up your eyes to this strategy and what Nelson Nash really intended by it and how we utilize a lot of the strategies that we do. We go over and do a financial review to see your goals and objectives and what you want to do, where you want to go, right? It's important for us to understand your financial situation because it's not a one size fits all. It's a very unique tool that is very individualized. And so if we don't know all the pieces, if we can't see the whole painting, it's really hard for us to say and recommend what we want to recommend. There is an application process. We are dealing with insurance. And so we apply to the carrier or the carriers, depending on where we're going. And then we get that through. There's strategy and planning and then policy design. After that, we will give a recommendation based on those strategies and planning, and then obviously the financial review. And then it's up to you and us to implement and to kind of stay connected. And what we do is we walk people through and we do annual reviews and we make sure that you guys know exactly what you're doing and how you're doing it and what the policy is going to do for you. And we're here to walk every step of the way, not to just set it and forget it and see you later. We're really hands-on with our clients and make sure that they know exactly where they're going and we're helping them get there. So you might have some questions, some ideas. So what ideas have come to mind while you're listening to this stuff, right? We presented a ton of information. It's a very 30,000 feet view, right? What are you going to do about it? The first thing I'd say is to set up a meeting, right? A man who procrastinates in his choosing will inevitably have his choice made for him by circumstances, right? So many times we procrastinate, we say, I'll get to them, and then we never take that step. We're giving a free consultation. We want to hear you. We want to give see if we can help you along your journey and your goals. And so by that, we'll start by answering a few of these questions that have come in, but definitely schedule a call with us. We'd love to meet you. Some next steps, right? Go to the website 1024wealth.com/BPM-RIA, right? You can book it there. You can email Jason Powers or jpowers@unbridledwealth.com or mfernicola@unbridledwealth.com. Book offers, text BYOB and your name to 720-458-6900 or scan the code right there. Use your phone to scan it right now and you can get that book offer. So yeah, it was such a pleasure having you guys on here. We're going to answer some of these questions. Somebody asked, what if you have health issues? This is obviously, we're dealing with insurance, right? There is a health exam, they do blood work and then do some questions. With that, it all depends, right? Every situation is different. I've had a client of mine who actually was dealing with cancer 5 years ago, but was still able to get a good policy through. And so it all depends on the unique situation. The insurance carrier will look at every situation a little bit different. But that's kind of where we can dissect your unique situation. If, let's say, you're uninsurable, there are ways to utilize this strategy, maybe not on yourself, but on a kid, on a spouse, on a, probably a kid, spouse, employee, right? There's a lot of different ways that you can utilize this, even if maybe you might be uninsurable or can no longer do the insurance portion.
How long do you does a person have to keep paying into the policy? And so again, that's all strategy and design. Typically, we're not going to want to fund it less than 5 years typically, but amounts can fluctuate, right? So that's a tough answer, but typically 5 to 7 years is where you want to have a minimum goal to fund. There are some taxable implications that you can run into, which we want to avoid, right? That's the whole point of this, and just avoid the tax implications by structuring it wrong. So yeah, again, it's all strategy and what's appropriate for you in your situation to do that. Alan, I apologize, we couldn't answer investment questions in particular. Given the nature of it. Nelson Nash Institute, there's a IBC practitioners program. If you go to my website, if you want to dive a little bit deeper into the background and the financial side and the economic side of infinite banking, get on my website. There is a video series you can dive into. And then if you watch the first few of those and want to keep watching, shoot me an email and I'll get you a code to watch the rest, to really dive deep dive into it. Otherwise, give us a call. We will talk through any and all questions, guys, that you have, and see what we can do for you.
Who and how is the monthly, yearly funding? And this will probably be the last question because I know we're running out of time. Is set. So that's all determined by the planning process, right? And so the government obviously plays a hand in how much, I'm not going to really break it down, but how much you can put in paid up additions, right, and put over the top. But what we do is we make it so that it fits your exact strategy. And we make sure that the policy is right for you, right? Like it's an individual policy. It's not something that's a one size fits all. So monthly, yearly funding would be something that we really look at what's coming in, what the inflows are in your life, how you're able to fund it. We saw a unique situation with Jason's real estate guy who was doing wholesale deals. He took the wholesale money, put that to fund the next year's premiums, and then he took that to fund the next deals, right? So where it's coming from, it all is subject to the person and the individual. So I hope that answered your question.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much. And again, reach out to us and love to chat. Thanks, Alexa, for having us.
Thank you guys so much. That was awesome. And I loved all the questions, really made me think, and I learned too. So thank you guys so much. Just so you all know, we did record today's webinar. We will post it on our YouTube channel in the next 48 hours. I will send each and every one of you a thank you email with the link to schedule with them and their contact information. So please look out for my email. If for any reason you don't get it, let me know. My email is my first name, Alexa, like the Amazon thing, @bpmria.com. And I saw a lot of amazing feedback in the chat today. So if you have a moment to give us a Google review, a 5-star Google review, and tell us your thoughts on today's webinar. I will give you a big virtual hug, but I'll also be more than happy to add an extra month to your membership with BPM RIA. And if you don't have one, I am more than happy to give you a 1-month free trial so that you can see if this is something that you'd like to invest in for yourself. As I briefly mentioned in the beginning, Unbridled Wealth is approved by the National RIA. They are officially one of the benefits with the National RIA that each and every member has access to in the member portal, Member Flow. So if you are a member, please log into your Member Flow today. Go to the benefits tab, check out Unbridled Wealth, schedule a call, do all the things, take action. This is what we're about at BPM RIA. We're all about taking action. So please go in there, do your research. It's better to have these answers and to confront it than, keep wondering and like letting the time pass. So thank you guys again so much. Thank you, Heather, also in the chat. And thank you guys. It was amazing. And we'll definitely have you all back soon, I hope. So have a great day. See you everyone tomorrow, webinar with Anish. So see you guys back tomorrow at 11 and have a great day. Thank you. Bye, guys.